Hi, everyone. My name is Cynthia Young, and I'm a PhD student at the Erasmus University Medical Center in Rotterdam, the Netherlands. I will present our study on the development and external validation of prediction models for adverse health outcomes in rheumatoid arthritis. This work was a huge team effort with a large number of co-authors, and our paper was recently published, recently accepted for publication in Seminars in Arthritis and Rheumatism. As some of you may already know, this study was conducted as part of a so-called study-a-thon organized by Eden and Odyssey in January of 2020. Within 5 days, we worked from study design to study results with a large team of about 40 people consisting of rheumatologists, clinicians, epidemiologists, data custodians, and data scientists. The motivation behind the study was that, compared to the general population, patients with rheumatoid arthritis, also RA in short, have an increased risk of various adverse health outcomes. The European League Against Rheumatism, also known as EULAR, recommends starting methotrexate monotherapy as soon as possible after a patient is diagnosed with RA. Our idea was that prediction models that could identify patients at high risk of adverse health outcomes could be used to inform clinicians that these patients should have increased screening or monitoring throughout the course of their treatment. This would allow for more personalized care than is currently possible. The objective of our study was therefore to develop and validate prediction models for adverse health outcomes in RA patients initiating first-line methotrexate monotherapy. Our study was designed as follows. The index event was a first drug utilization record of methotrexate, and we restricted to adult RA patients with at least 1 year of prior observation. We excluded patients who had any other inflammatory arthritis or any cancer prior to index, and we excluded patients who had a record of the outcome of interest in the preceding 90 days. We considered various adverse health outcomes, but in this presentation, I will focus on the results for serious infection in the next 90 days, which was defined as infections resulting in hospital admission or death, myocardial infarction in the next 2 years, and stroke in the next 2 years. We used data from 15 databases in 6 European countries, the US, Australia, and Japan. Data from these databases were all mapped to the OMOP CDM. This allowed us to develop the models on one database and externally validate the models across all other databases during the study-a-thon. For each outcome, we considered 2 lasso logistic regression models, one benchmark model using only age groups and sex, and one data-driven approach using more than 12,000 candidate predictors, which, besides age groups and sex, included all conditions and drugs recorded prior to index. We developed our models on Optum Claims, a US claims database, where about 21,000 patients met the inclusion criteria. We used 75% of the data to train the models and the remaining 25% to internally validate the models. Finally, we externally validated our models on a total of more than 130,000 patients from 14 databases. This slide shows the results for internal validation. We investigated model discrimination using the area under the receiver operating characteristic curve, also AUROC or AUC in short. And we also investigated model calibration by plotting the predicted risks against the observed risks, which you can see at the bottom, where a 1-to-1 relation would mean perfect calibration. For each model, we found that internal validation resulted in good discrimination with AUCs above 0.7 and adequate calibration, demonstrating that we could reproduce our results within the same database. On external validation, the models generally resulted in good discrimination and adequate calibration as well. However, these are, for example, the results for the stroke model validated on a US EHR database. We can see that the AUC is quite high with a value of 0.71, but the calibration plot indicates overestimated risks. A reason for this may be that this database contains GP data, whereas most strokes get captured in hospital. This shows that we need to be careful and should consider recalibration when transporting models to other databases that may be very different from the development database. Here we can see the range of the AUC across all databases for the data-driven approach. On external validation, results varied partly because for some databases, the sample size was small. But for all three models, we found that the data-driven approach consistently outperformed the benchmark, demonstrating that conditions and drugs extracted from routinely recorded data have added value in identifying RA patients at high risk of serious infection, myocardial infarction, and stroke. To conclude, we developed models that identify RA patients at risk of serious infection, myocardial infarction, and stroke at the start of first-line methotrexate monotherapy. The developed models showed good performance across multiple databases, although for some databases, the models may benefit from recalibration. We do not believe we have sufficient evidence to recommend the use of the models in clinical practice, but future research could be conducted to prove their value as implemented in, for example, EHR software to generate automatic reminders for individuals at high risk of these outcomes. I would like to thank all the participants of the RA Studyathon, although it was 2.5 years ago, and Odyssey and Eden. Feel free to email me for more information. For now, thank you for listening to my presentation.